So I have a question, and I'm hoping you guys can answer it. Or maybe not answer it per se, but provide your opinions on whether this is a me thing or a maladaptive daydreaming thing. So that means it's time for another community debate. So the thing that's been bothering me recently is memory and more like memory problems. Because I'm not sure if it's just a me thing or if it's a maladaptive daydreaming thing. Because after I'm done daydreaming, I just can't seem to remember the situation before I started daydreaming. And this is especially a problem when I'm daydreaming in my idealized reality paracosm. Because say I have to write like a stressful email to my boss or something, I've had a time commitment come up and I have to cancel my shift, and it's not an email I'm looking forward to writing because, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. But I have to write this email and I really, really don't want to. Instead of actually writing the email and getting it done, I will daydream about writing the email and then forget that I didn't actually write the email. I just wrote the email in my idealized reality. And it will usually take me at least a few hours to be like, wait, I didn't actually do that. And then I'll stress about it all over again and still not do it, and then get into another daydream about it, and the email still won't get written. And that kind of cycle can sometimes take days to actually get the email written, which causes problems because sometimes I don't have a few days to respond to an email like that. And it's not just like emails and other kind of important stuff like that. It happens when I'm trying to do any schoolwork on my own as well. I think part of the reason why online school went so poorly for me is because the same thing would happen. I'd be in class, I'd daydream, and then I'd think I went to class, but really didn't. I had no idea what we were talking about the entire lecture. And then the test or the project or the assignment would come up. I wouldn't know the information because I wasn't mentally present for the class. And then I'd not write the paper. And then I'll have like a million tabs open on my computer because I'll start working on something, start daydreaming, get out of the daydream, and then use YouTube or some other form of like video that I can focus on to kind of get my brain focusing back on something. And then I'll start a new project or do something else. And so I'll have about 6 things open that I'm actively working on, but I just can't work on them all because my brain doesn't remember that I've started it almost. Like, I know it's been started, but my brain thinks I've been working on it for the past however many hours I've been daydreaming and feels like the task should be done. And it's not that like I can't tell idealized reality from actual reality. Like, it's not an issue of not knowing where the daydream line is. It's the issue of my brain gets the satisfaction of doing the thing while I daydream about it, so I don't need the satisfaction in reality, so I don't do the thing in reality. Although while I'm daydreaming, if somebody says something to me or tells me to do something or just typically engages with me in any way, there is like no % chance I will remember what you've said to me. Like, I will daydream during conversations and then kind of snap back really quickly and out of nowhere and just have no idea what the person I've been talking to has been saying this whole time. And usually the thing that snaps me back is the lack of kind of noise around me because they've stopped talking and they're expecting a response, but I don't know what they've said. So it's just kind of reading emotional context clues and kind of giving the best kind of response you can think of, I guess. It's, oh boy. And then during like really, really strong daydreaming sessions, during conversations, I sometimes don't remember the entire conversation that we had, even the parts I was paying attention to, because the daydream just overpowers it almost in my memory. I found that the best and sometimes only way to get that memory of the conversation back is to find out what triggered the daydream, because usually it's something that the other person said or something in the environment, and then kind of working backwards to, oh, I was triggered by this because we were talking about this, and that's what the conversation was about. And like, I don't know if you guys ever did those like reading comprehension sheets in like elementary school and junior high, but we did for our novel studies all the time, and it would basically have like 5-ish sections on it, and it would be like, oh, you have to predict what happens in this chapter, and then you have to ask a question, and then they would like, well, at least what my school did is everyone in our reading group, which is usually about 5 or so kids, would do one thing for each chapter. And one of those things was connecting. And basically what you had to do was take something you read from the chapter and connect it to something in real life. And that was like the best way for me to remember what happened, like plot-wise in books and stuff like that. Even now when I'm engaging in like fictional media, usually the best way that I will remember a plot is if the plot connects to either a daydream, which is best case scenario, I will never forget what happens, or it connects to something emotionally within me, and then I'll remember it. If there's no connection there, I won't even remember the characters' names sometimes. Like, it's a lost cause. Got 2, maybe 3 major plot points in me, but after that, like, don't ask me anything else. I won't remember. And the weirdest thing when it comes to my brain and connections and like academic knowledge is I will remember anything once it's connected to something else. So, like, I had a class that was talking about teaching movement to children, and I did pretty well in that class. I remembered enough of the information, but then the next semester I took a dance class for children, which had lots of the same concepts in it, and I could remember them like 10 times better than I could for the final exam, which I studied for, and I still knew the information, but it was like clear as day. The second it was, oh, we did this in my movement for children class, so now I remember it perfectly from my dance for children class. That like connection thing was entirely how I got through my grade 12 math and physics classes, because like they taught lots of the same math. I learned the math concepts way better when I was in physics, and I learned the physics concepts way better when I was in math, because the calculations were decently similar, or at least related to each other. And then I'd be like, oh, we did this in physics when I was in math, and I'd be like, yes, I'm the smartest person ever. And then I'd be in physics and I'd be like, oh, we did this in math, and I'm the smartest person ever in math, and smartest mathematician ever. But if you asked me to do math concepts in math and physics concepts in physics, without that connection, I never would have been able to figure it out as well as I did with the connection. The daydreams will also just like randomly bring memories to the surface sometimes that I don't even like. It just kind of like, I'll be daydreaming and then, oh, boom, you remember this? Like, I was daydreaming in one of my paracosms one day and then just randomly remembered a very specific conversation I had that I hadn't thought about in years, and it was like, I was blindsided by it. Like, the connections went paracosm connected to movie saw with friend went to dinner with on a completely separate occasion than seeing the movie with friend and I having very specific conversation. Oh, that conversation that's related to this inside joke. Now I remember the cause of the inside joke. So it all kind of happens in like 2 seconds. So it's like you're daydreaming and you're so deep in a daydream, and then snap. It's like random conversation. Random eye-opening conversation that you haven't thought about in forever. But like, if my friend had asked me like, hey, do you remember how this inside joke started? It would probably take me like, I'd probably have to sit there and like think about it and be like, okay, who was I with? Where were we? What were we doing? Oh, now I remember. Like, it would take some effort to remember, whereas it was like instantaneous. It was related to that daydream. The connections are like the best way for remembering for me, and I feel like, I don't know if that's just a me thing or if that's a daydreaming thing. So if I end up getting caught daydreaming about something, I really need to find that connection to figure out what the context was and what's going on. Which sometimes that can make planning kind of hard if I can't figure out the connection that made the plans happen. Because if I don't write down the plans that I make within a few hours of making them, I will forget most of what we've been talking about. I'll remember like the big ideas, like what we're doing, but if you need me to remember like when to show up or where to go, unless it's like mega obvious, I won't remember. Or I'll remember, but I won't believe what I remembered because I knew I wasn't fully present for the conversation sometimes, and then I'm like, okay, did I just make that up because that sounds accurate, or is it actually accurate? And then that'll make me super paranoid that I don't have the right information. But it's also too late to kind of go back and ask because it's usually been a few hours at this point. And I'm not like a socially anxious person or anything, but going back to the person after you've had the conversation and saying like, hey, so I wasn't listening, but I also wasn't present enough to ask you the question while we were making the plans, is like, even that's a lot for me. That'll sometimes lead into me just mega overcompensating for like my lack of knowledge. Like, oh, I'll know that the thing has to start by 2 p.m. So I'm just going to be like way over prepared and ready at like 10 a.m. and just hope whenever the person shows up at my door to pick me up, like, I'll be ready, because I know it will be sometime after 10 a.m. because there's no way they'll be there 4 hours early. Like, we need to make plans in writing, over text, over email, something like that, where I can look back at it when I can actually think about what I've made plans for and have all the information ready. Which is why emails are a blessing and a curse, because having the information there is like the best thing ever. But also, as we talked about before, I'm bad at replying to emails because I daydream instead of reply to them and then don't get back for a few days. So it's like, but yeah, plans. If I get pulled out of a daydream to make a plan for something, I won't remember it, and I'll have to just piece together the information on my own, because my brain isn't here. If you pull me out of my daydream, my brain really doesn't want to be here. It's more trying to go back to the paracosm, and there's no way I'm remembering anything you tell me. Again, I got maybe some general ideas, but you want specifics? It's like 50-50 whether I'll actually remember them or not. And I know that these aren't really big memory issues, but they're just inconvenient enough to make me feel uncomfortable and unsure of myself, and then makes me question my entire, like, previous day, because what do I really remember? I remember daydreaming. But yeah, but that's then the thing that's kind of been bugging me for the past, like, month or so, I'd say, at this point. So it would be really, really helpful to know if this is a maladaptive daydreaming thing, or if this is just me having bad memory and I need to do something else to try and fix that problem. Because I am honestly more motivated to fix the memory thing than the daydreaming thing at the moment. And if they were connected, then hey, I really wouldn't complain. Kill two birds with one stone, am I right? But anyway, so please, let me know if this is a thing that you do too. If you have other kind of like memory things that are kind of like weird that you're not sure if are related to MAD, because the whole point of this kind of community debate series is that we figure out what the heck we're going through together. And I really, really like seeing all the comments on these types of videos, because it makes me feel so much less alone. It's just like you can see other people going through the same thing you are, other people struggling, and you know it's not just you, and it's just, it's a sigh of relief is what it is. But yeah, thank you for taking another step with me on my never-ending journey, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!